Hello, my name is Tabitha Tripp. I'm the owner of Tender Hearts Home Healthcare, and my show is Navigating the Way for Seniors. We've been doing a series on healthy aging, and today we're going to talk about eye health. We're going to talk about the different foods that are going to preserve your eyesight and your vision. Welcome back, Kim Ferreira.
Thank you, Tabitha.
She's our dietitian for Coastline Elderly, and Kim's been doing this wonderful series on all the foods and the benefits for our bodies. So, Kim, we know that with the aging process, we have foods that are good for our heart, good for our bodies. So what is the big concern when it comes to eye health?
Well, when it comes to eye health, age, unfortunately, is the most important risk factor. So in addition to all the risk factors we'll get into in a minute, age is that big one. There are some stats out there that say by the time we're in our 90s, we have a 90% chance of having some of these issues with our eyes like cataracts and macular degeneration. And unfortunately, age, we can't control that one.
Right.
So it is important to think about what we can do for our eyes to keep them preserved. Cataract surgery is the most popular surgery done in the US, so that tells you how frequent it is. When I do talks, I ask people how many people have had cataracts, and I mean, at least half of the room raise their hand. Age-related macular degeneration is the largest cause of vision loss in the US too. So these are really prevalent things that are happening with the aging population.
I was just reading something the other day, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And it said, I was reading it online, 1 out of every 6 adults 45 years and older will be affected by some type of sight-threatening vision problem. And of course, we all know that, macular degeneration and cataracts are one of the biggest, diseases to hit the seniors.
Yep.
What is actually the difference between the two of those?
Okay, so first with macular degeneration, what happens is there's like this waste buildup. They call it drusen, and it's oxidized fat, so to speak. It's this waste that forms underneath our retina. And what happens is it creates this obstruction to details of faces and objects. So there's 2 different types. There's the dry macular degeneration, which is the cells that help to kind of get rid of that waste, they die off. So there's nothing there to help get rid of it, so it builds up. The second is wet macular degeneration. What happens is blood vessels start to form around the retina, and it creates leaking of fluid and blood. So neither of them sound pleasant, but the wet seems a little bit more something that is going to be a little bit more intense to deal with, just with the leaking. So if you take a look at this picture, just for visuals, this would be an illustration of someone with normal vision and then someone with age-related macular degeneration. So you see that there's that obstructed view of details of the face. So that gives you an idea of what's going on with macular degeneration.
So basically you see the bigger objects, but you don't see the details,
exactly.
The eyes, the nose.
Exactly. So that's age-related macular degeneration. With cataracts, what's happening is we have proteins in our lenses, and when damage is on those lenses, and we have damage either from prolonged sun, we're not wearing our sunglasses over time, that damage occurs from natural sun, or other types of insults. That damage then creates a blurred vision. So it creates clumps in the lens that prevents light from coming through, so it creates this blurred type of vision. So again, here's a healthy lens, and then here's someone with cataracts. So you can still kind of see the eyes in the nose, unlike with macular degeneration, but it's just like a haze is over it.
So it's like an all-over little blurriness.
Right, to kind of give you a difference.
Are there different treatment options for both of these types of diseases?
Well, with cataracts, we know cataract surgery. So that's pretty much the main treatment. With age-related macular degeneration, over the last 5 to 10 years, there has not really been many options. There's really no cure for it. Right now, what we have is there's a drug that people can take. it's not very appealing. It's actual injections into your eye. And
for the macular degeneration.
Exactly. And it's very expensive, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to have their eye injected. And it's only appropriate for a certain group of people depending on their progression of the disease. There was an eye disease study that was done, and they had recommended this kind of packet of supplements, which included beta-carotene and zinc and vitamin C and vitamin E. People can take those, but again, it's a select few. It doesn't necessarily prevent the progression. And it's only for people within a certain phase of their macular degeneration.
So are the seniors the only ones that are at a high risk?
Well, it is age. It is. You're one of the major risk factors is 60 and older. Not that you couldn't get it at a younger age, but people are more prevalent when they're older. There are new surgeries coming out, but they're really still in the experimental phases, unfortunately.
Okay. So we're going to talk about diet and how that can help prevent it. So before we get to, become a senior, hopefully starting to eat some of these things is just going to really help us. And I remember as a child, my mother used to always tell me, eat your leafy greens, it's good for your eyes. But you don't really, as a child, know why.
Right.
So you're going to talk a little bit about the leafy greens and why are the leafy greens good for our eyes?
Well, out of a lot of the foods, what they have found is that people who eat a diet rich in these dark green leafy vegetables have a lower incidence of cataracts and age-related macular degeneration. So we know spinach is in that category. We know kale is in that category. So I thought I'd bring in a couple others that we shouldn't forget, like beet greens. A lot of us, when we go to the store, we buy beets and we toss the greens. Well, these are so rich in a couple different antioxidants called lutein and zeaxanthin. Same with Brussels sprouts and broccoli and collard greens. That dark green pigment is really rich in those two antioxidants.
So those are the nutrients that are good for your eyes.
Exactly.
Would you use this part of the kale, or would you just use the
green part?
The green part, not the beet. I'm sorry.
I'm not a chef, so maybe there's some way to cook the stems. I don't know of
but
that.
The nutrients are in the greens.
Yes, in terms of the eye health nutrients, it's lutein and zeaxanthin. Lutein itself, there are thousands and thousands of antioxidants out there, and there's only a select few that are really targeted for our eyes. Lutein is like the one antioxidant that is actually targeted to the macula of our eye, and it helps to keep that, protected and healthy. So the lutein and along with zeaxanthin have been shown to be helpful with keeping our eyes healthy. And you're starting to see, I'm seeing supplements in the stores. So people are hearing about these names now.
Right. So are those same nutrients in your Brussels sprouts?
Absolutely. Yep. It's really those dark green leafy vegetables that contain those two antioxidants.
And I just want you to share. Before we started the show, you were sharing about a recipe for Brussels sprouts, and I don't usually eat them. Can you just kind of share that with us, because that sounded wonderful?
Yeah, my husband and I were at a restaurant in Colorado from one of the top chefs. It was our big night out. And the chef had actually pulled the leaves off, and she sauteed the leaves. So I took that concept home, and I make a little balsamic dressing, and I just saute the leaves in a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and it ends up tasting really nice, and it gives it more of a lighter feel of eating the Brussels sprouts versus, a lot of times they're cooked in whole, so you're biting into that really thick bundle.
And they almost have a bitter flavor in a way sometimes, I think.
Some people may. I've really grown to like them in the last few years. I never grew up with them. And they're actually our favorite. I try to buy them every week.
I guess it depends on how you cook them. It's like anything. You've got to add some flavor, some spices and things of that nature. Okay, you have sardines?
Yes, the other food group that they have found that has been helpful is our fatty fish. Right. So that would be our mackerel, our tuna, our salmon, sardines.
So we're getting our omega-3.
Exactly.
What about the mercury that's in a lot of the canned
The nice thing about about our omega-3s is that rich anti-inflammatory effect that it has. So they're really thinking that that's having some effect that's been helping with our eyes. When people talk about, these larger fish, like you said, mercury tends to pop right in their head. Unless we are at a high risk population, so children and women who are pregnant or during pregnancy ages, that's really the high risk age where we really have to be extra careful about the mercury levels. The 60 and older, not necessarily in that high risk population. And so there are those high mercury level type of fish like shark and tilefish that we really want to try to limit as much as we can, and swordfish. And then we do have things like tuna, canned tuna, which is in that moderate category. There are resources out there that, if people called in to me at Coastline or sent me an email, I'd be happy to send those out.
Cans of tuna in the category of
moderate levels of mercury.
Okay.
So they actually have, what's great, they have diagrams out there that can tell you based on your weight, this is how often you can safely consume a can of tuna.
Okay.
For most of us, it's going to be we could consume a can of tuna every 2 to 3 days. Most of us are probably not eating it that often.
I eat a lot of tuna.
Okay. Well, based on weight, also albacore tuna versus the chunk light is also a little bit different too.
Okay.
You don't hear about mercury poisoning. It's not that common. So I think you really have to be eating quite a bit to, be at risk.
You brought up a good point, the albacore tuna. Are there more nutrients in the albacore compared to the chunky, darker tuna?
Not necessarily. It's still going to have that rich protein. If you get it in oil, it will have a little bit more of the fats, but it will be the healthier fats. So if you're someone who likes it tuna but loves it in the oil, I'm not too concerned. We're not concerned about getting a little bit of fat from that oil in the tuna, because it is, again, those healthier types of fats. But they do find that the amount of mercury that's contained in that albacore is a little bit higher than in the chunk light.
Okay.
But fish like our cod and our shrimp and our scallops, try to say it the right way, not in my Midwestern accent, those tend to be the lower levels of mercury level, and those tend to be very, very common types of fish and seafood that people eat. So believe it or not, a lot of us tend to eat those lower level type of mercury seafood anyways.
The canned sardines, you've heard it for years, the benefits of sardines. Fish coming in a can, tuna, sardines, are those better for you than the other fish, or are they all about the same?
Oh, they're all about the same.
Okay.
What's nice is when they're in the can, sometimes you're able to make them a little bit more affordable. They're not as fresh. So, when you're buying fish that's fresh, you're going to pay more for that. And lots of people love canned sardines, canned salmon, canned tuna. And if you're on a budget, sometimes it's a nice way to go to even things out if you can't always get to the fish market.
Okay, so we're talking about the leafy greens and the fish for our eyes. Is that basically the only foods that we're going to be benefit for us?
Those so far are the big food groups that we're finding that we have seen some significant impact for our eyes. But
so someone that's not eating these types of foods, should they take a supplement, lutein? Lutein.
That would be something you would definitely want to check with your pharmacist, check with your doctor, because you still need to be careful with other medications that people are taking, as well as it's always important to remember, supplements are not strongly regulated. So, by the FDA, so we have to be a little bit careful just to make sure that we're not overdoing it in any way. With our dark green leafies, a population that comes to mind are people who are on blood thinners. So they tend to say, I'm supposed to stay away from the spinach and the kale and the Brussels sprouts. And really when it comes down to that, if you love those types of foods, you just have to have it consistently. You have to have a consistent intake of those green leafy vegetables, and speak with your doctor. I know a lot of people get their levels checked, so it's important to have that communication in terms of the frequency at which you eat those. But many people think they have to stay away.
That's a good point.
It's easier to stay away
I've had
from
clients
it.
that do stay away because of that are on the,
Right.
the Coumadin.
Well, it's easier to stay away from it than eat it consistently. But if you're someone that really feels can get it in your diet on a consistent basis, and you can't go crazy. You can't one day have 2 big cups of kale and then not eat it for the next few days. We can't do that when we're on medications like Coumadin. But if it's a small, consistent intake, it's definitely feasible and definitely something that people can do. And so it's important to know that this type of food group doesn't have to be limited if you are on that medication.
Right. Okay. What other ideas are there for eye health as far as something that you can share with us?
Yeah. What research have found is our weight. Being overweight is a risk factor. So if we can keep our weight into check, that makes a big difference in, the overall health, including eye health. Also watching the carbs. Remember, people with diabetes, what's a big spot that it hits? Well, it hits all over our bodies, but our eyes are a big spot where people are prone to have eye issues with diabetes. So, and that's the same that holds true with eye health. So making sure that if we have diabetes, we're keeping them under control and keeping those really refined carbs in control.
That's interesting. I don't associate eye problems with diabetes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When people have consistent high blood sugars, one of the main symptoms is blurred eyes, because those sugars, with high blood sugars, it's in your blood. It circulates all through the body, and our eyes are no different. We have tons of blood vessels throughout our eyes, so it's going to those areas as well. Research has found that people that take a multivitamin tend to have, a lower risk for getting cataracts or macular degeneration. And that could be because people who take a multivitamin may just eat a more balanced diet and get exercise. So, it's not the take a multivitamin and you're not going to have problems with your eyes.
They might be very health conscious to begin with.
It's the big picture of everything. Right. So those are kind of some other things that you can do in addition to making sure that you eat your leafy greens. And like I said, people can definitely, email me and call me if they need suggestions or ideas. That's one of the nice things is at Coastline, I'm a free resource for our consumers to provide that type of information.
And you also always have the best recipes. You're going to have to come back on and just do a show. All kinds of recipes. I think the viewers would really, really like that.
Yeah, we can definitely.
Because I know that every time I talk with you, I always like starting writing things down, or you email me some recipes. So, we might consider doing that for a show.
Yeah.
Any last minute tips you want to give us, Kim?
No, it's just important to make sure you're eating with color. I can't, I'm sure I've said that in other shows, but, it's really important to love the food that we're eating and, enjoy all aspects of food. And by just eating with color, we know we're really getting all of those great nutrients to help really keep our bodies healthy from head to toe.
And of course, the natural nutrients, so much better for you than the supplements, of course.
Absolutely. Our body utilizes it so much better. A multivitamin is not a bad idea for people who just can't get to that 100%. Right. That's what the multivitamin is for. It's not to say, I don't have to have my vegetables.
I'll just eat the vitamin. Exactly.
I take a multivitamin. Exactly. So we need to get our whole foods in. That's a priority.
Good. All right, Kim. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Once again, it was great, and I'm going to look forward to the next one.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions for Kim or for myself, you can contact the number on the screen at the end of the show. Thanks so much. Have a great day.